What's up, Duke fans, and welcome to episode 6 of the Duke Blue Central podcast. So good to be coming at you wherever you're listening to this today. Thank you to all of you who have tuned into the first 5 episodes of the Duke Blue Central podcast. Today is an exciting day. It is October 24th. We are going to be breaking down Countdown to Craziness, including a full breakdown of the scrimmage, as well as a breakdown of maybe some decisions coming from some of the big recruits that were in attendance at Countdown to Craziness. That was almost as exciting to watch as the very scrimmage and all of Countdown itself. It was a great day, great, really fun viewing experience, as Countdown always is. It's always a good time getting to watch the players kind of introduce themselves, not only to us, the fans at home, but to Cameron. A lot of those guys, I think it was a couple of the freshmen, maybe first time in Cameron with fans. I think that Jared McCain had said he had come to one game before, and TJ Power, I don't know if he had ever came to Cameron. I believe he said that maybe in his post-game interview, that he had never been to Cameron with fans anyway, like never seen it full, and that is quite an experience. I imagine for your first time ever seeing Cameron with fans, you're playing a scrimmage. Got to be some nerves there, especially after your whole day you might be focused on what dance moves you breaking out when they intro you to the crazies, and then all of a sudden you got to suit up and play a game, which might explain some of our freshmen struggling a little bit in the scrimmage, which I'll get to later. But yeah, the beginning of Countdown was awesome. Tell you, the women's basketball team really brought the house down, I thought. Shout out to them. They don't get a lot of love. The Lady Blue Devils. Excited to watch them this year. I think they've got some good things in store. Really good defensive team, obviously. And that was showcased in their scrimmage. Some lockdown defense being held there. Seems like that's going to be kind of the maybe the marquee or the calling card of this year's Lady Blue Devil team, as it was last year's. Just an elite defensive team that maybe struggles to score sometimes. But if you can hang your hat on an elite defense, that can win you a lot of games. So we're excited for that. Excited to watch the Lady Blue Devils. I also thought the girl that did the backflip, that did kind of the back somersault, maybe my intro of the night, maybe my favorite one of the night. Love to see the stunts. We didn't see anything nearly as ambitious from any of the men's team. Didn't see anybody spring a backflip off of the stands there at Cameron. Love to see that one day. Love to see somebody jump up into the stands and just hit a backflip onto the gym floor. Kept waiting on that to happen. Didn't happen this year. One can always hope for next year. But the intros are always fun. Getting to see some of the players' personalities shine through. Jared McCain, obviously, when you got a couple million TikTok followers, you're going to come out with a good dance. He did not disappoint. Great dance moves as always. Some of the other guys were good. Stanley Borden coming out with the a cappella group and singing Forget You. Quite a moment there. I heard that his mic, like the TV broadcast, you could hear. I watched the game, watched it on TV. You could hear him pretty well, but the audio quality was not a top level production, I would say. And you could kind of tell, for Countdown, ESPN is not pulling out all the stops on the production level. So there were a couple funky moments when you're watching on TV. It's actually, I enjoy watching, which I guess we won't get as many basketball games on ACC Network Extra this year with the CW deal going on, but I kind of have enjoyed watching Duke events on ACC Network Extra, because instead of cutting to commercials, the majority of the time they'll just show what's going on in the arena. So you'll see the fans shooting the half-court shot for a big scholarship or something. Or I just enjoy seeing that rather than seeing commercials. But regardless, sound quality, production quality, they didn't pull out all the stops for this. So when Stanley came out and sang with the group, it was a little muted, didn't hear it that well. I think on the TV broadcast, I'm hearing that in the arena, it was really hard to hear him. Basically, nobody heard him singing with that a cappella group. But obviously, he has become a Countdown legend. He might not play a lot this year, but nevertheless, we love Stanley. We loved the saxophone last year. Loved the singing this year. I'm glad they got rid of that stage. If you remember last year's Countdown, they had the stage that must have only been 3 feet wide, but 4.5 feet up in the air, asking for somebody to fall off of that thing and bust an ankle on the Cameron floor. I'm glad that's gone. We're just going with the floor from now on. No, unless you get a big stage, no stage. Just stick with the floor. The gym floor works good for those guys to run out and do some moves on. But yeah, it was obviously a fun time watching that. It's good to kind of just see these guys in Cameron in front of the crazies. I'll tell you, one of the biggest things for me is you always know, like throughout this whole offseason, you knew Flip was coming back. You knew Proctor was coming back. You knew Mark was coming back after they announced anyway. I mean, this whole kind of offseason leading up to the beginning of the season, you knew they were back. But just to see those guys in a Duke jersey again is just something my eyes are not used to, you know? Like, there was no way I anticipated that Flip was going to be in a Duke jersey ever again. I remember thinking in that Tennessee game, you know, man, I think kind of later in the game, Flip took kind of like a meaningless three the game was already over. And that might have been the last shot we took as a team as the season. And I just remember thinking, you know, there's Flip's last shot as a Blue Devil. What a good, unexpectedly great freshman year he had, and that's going to be it. But nope, here we are again. All those guys are back, and Josh, it's just such a pleasant surprise and a pleasant feeling to see all those guys suiting up in the Duke blue again. A great time seeing them. So let's move on to the actual scrimmage here. The scrimmage teams was an interesting format. I think every Duke fan kind of had a similar reaction when they saw these. So suiting up for the white team, it was a starting lineup, a three guard starting lineup consisting of Jeremy Roach, Tyrese Proctor, Jalen Blakes, Kyle Filipowski, and Christian Reeves. Kind of a heavy veteran lineup there. It feels like you had the three best players on the team on the same team in Roach, Proctor, and Flip. I think the blue team got shafted a little here. Maybe it was set up for the white team to win. I don't know. But then on the blue team, you had Caleb Foster and Jared McCain, two freshman guards holding it up. Then you had Jaden Shute at the 3. You had Mark Mitchell at the 4 and Ryan Young starting at the 5. And Sean Stewart was actually the first to come off the bench for the blue team in place of Ryan Young and played the bulk of his minutes at center for the blue team, which is an interesting development. I want to talk about the lineups a little bit later after we get down to some player breakdowns, but I thought maybe the most interesting thing we can take away from Countdown isn't necessarily player performance. I know everybody's freaking out about Christian Reeves and the performances that he has. You can go ahead and put Christian Reeves' 21 jersey in the rafters when it comes to Countdown. He is obviously a Countdown legend. Christian Reeves is a Final Four most outstanding player. We all know that. But maybe more than looking into the necessarily player development, I like digging into kind of the lineups and maybe these are some lineups we could see in games and kind of dig into what that may mean for the team. But first, let's kind of get into some player breakdowns. And I think the first set of guys I want to talk about are the freshman guards here. So that would be Caleb Foster and Jared McCain. I don't think they exactly brought the house down as much as people expected they were going to. I don't have the stats pulled up in front of me, but Jared McCain didn't hit a 3 the whole time. I don't think Caleb Foster did either. Only finished with a handful of points. They both had a couple turnovers, a couple bad plays, and then showed some flashes toward the end. But I just want to remind everyone listening not to freak out about this performance from Caleb Foster and Jared McCain. They have both said themselves, look, I mean, your first time playing kind of quote-unquote real college ball in front of real college fans in Cameron can be a really shocking experience. And listen, these are also guys that have practiced against them for months and months now. They know their tendencies. They know how to play defense against them. So don't put in too much stock into them maybe not impressing you as much as you thought they should have. I think they both looked good for me. Obviously, you'd like to see some of their shots go down. I know Jared McCain took a couple threes. I thought they were all good takes, and they just didn't go down. But the form looks good. His play looked good. He made, I think, two mid-range jumpers and a layup. Maybe I might be wrong on that. Maybe just one mid-range and a layup. But his form looked good. He was doing the right things. He did have one turnover where he kind of drove into the lane and got it stolen from him, which the Brotherhood podcast actually just dropped today featuring Ryan Young and Jared McCain. And one of the things he said on there was maybe the most difficult thing to adjust to in the college game compared to high school is shooting those gaps when you're driving into the lane. Just that college players have a lot more length, obviously, than high school guys, and especially Duke, who, he said, he's used to driving up against high school players, and now all of a sudden he's driving against Mark Mitchell and Kyle Filipowski, which are really two of the longest guys in college basketball. I know maybe Mark isn't necessarily the tallest or has the most length, but at that size and with that speed, Mark guards a lot of guards. But that is going to be about the hardest defender you can go up against, so I'm not putting too much stock in that. Jared looked good. I think he's going to be just fine. I think he's still on track to probably be that elusive fifth starter everyone's talking about. But I liked what I saw from Jared. I'm not worried about him at all. Caleb Foster, I thought he had an interesting game. He looks big out there. Looks like he's going to be a capable defender. I actually liked what I saw from his game. I love that little floater he shoots. I think the floater overall is a little bit of an underutilized shot in today's game, both in kind of college and NBA. I'd like to see more guys take advantage of that shot. I just love, it feels like it's an easy shot to get open just because it comes out so fast. And I know Duke loves to run kind of that pick and roll style offense with the big guys that we have. And it's a perfect shot for the pick and roll, in my opinion. I want to see him take more of those. I think he made at least one, but took a couple. That seems to be kind of a go-to shot for him, and I'm going to love seeing that. That's going to fall. Don't put too much stock again into what he did. Remember, last year's countdown was not indicative at all of kind of the performance of some players. Christian Reeves, once again, went crazy in last year's countdown. And just to further illustrate that point, you don't have to look any further than what Kyle Filipowski did in this game. I mean, I know he comes off with a couple buckets there. He made 1 3. I can't remember exactly how many he took. It was 3 or 4, but for the vast majority of this game, Kyle Filipowski's offense was essentially just taking threes. And I seriously doubt when we're going into the regular season that's going to be his game plan. I think this is them having fun out there, trying to impress the fans. And then, of course, he had that spectacular dunk at the end, which might have been as athletic of a dunk as I've seen Flip make. He had some good dunks last year, but, man, I don't know that we saw a dunk look that athletic from Flip last year than we did in Countdown this year. So that could be a symptom of the new two-hip Flip, as they're calling him these days. Got that double hip replacement. He's feeling good. He's feeling loose, feeling athletic. So I'm excited to see kind of what he looks like in a real game, going kind of 100% at full game speed in an actual game against people who are not wearing Duke blue. So, but all that to say, I just want to use that to illustrate my point here of I don't think too much into the countdown scrimmage. I like to take away, our guys making shots, what do guys look like out on the floor, how is the passing, how's the ball movement. But to talk about some other players, I wanted to highlight Tyrese Proctor. I thought his dribbling was phenomenal. There were a couple times he just juked guys absolutely out of their shoes and then dished off quick passes. I just think he is a maestro of this offense. I think this team is really Proctor's team. I know that may seem crazy to say with guys like Jeremy Roach and Kyle Filipowski on the team, but I just think this team may go just as far as Proctor takes them. I just think when you're in March, we know that guards are what win, and your guard is the guy with the ball in his hands most of the time. I just think that this team is going to need him on the court as much as possible. Like, I'm not afraid to say, in the beginning of the year, I'd love to see him play 25-plus minutes, and then, man, as we get into March and kind of these more important games, I just feel like we'll be looking up and thinking, gosh, we need Proctor on the floor 35 minutes a game. Like in a tournament game, it would not surprise me if Proctor is getting 35 minutes and some of these other freshman guards just take a slight step back. Now, when we start in the regular season, I expect everyone to play a little bit more, but we all know the lineup kind of slims down as you get to those more important games, and I think that's going to happen for Tyrese. He just looks too good and too just pivotal and important for this offense to not be on the floor. And I also think his defense still gets sold short. Like, I think as a Duke fan, you know how good of a defender he is. I mean, he shut down opposing guards kind of as Duke was going on that massive win streak. I mean, the NC State game comes to mind where he just flustered Traquavion Smith, who had just dominated previous games, and he just made it look easy, frustrated him, got in his head. I think his defense goes underrated. The guy is also 6'5", so that's a guy, I mean, you could see Proctor guard a lot of opposing team threes, depending on their size, and he's our point guard. Sky is the limit for Proctor this year, and there are a couple highlight plays in here from Proctor that I think maybe were my favorite. My favorite of the whole game was probably he did a little shake and bake on the outside of the perimeter, pump faked a guy, dribbled it into the lane a little bit, and then dished it into Christian Reeves on the inside. That might be my favorite play. That's been going around a little. I think the Duke basketball Twitter account posted it. Maybe my favorite play of the day. Also wanted to highlight Sean Stewart a little bit. Maybe the most interesting part of this is that Reeves got the start in Countdown over a guy like Stewart. Now I know they weren't on the same team, but I just think if you were polling fans and analysts kind of this, they would all tell you that they think Sean Stewart is ahead of Reeves in the rotation, but Reeves gets a start here and Sean doesn't. Now I know it's just Countdown, and some of it might be just matchup or like team oriented. Maybe Shire wanted to get all the young guys on the blue team, and that just didn't work out with the lineups. Could very well be it, but I just do find it interesting from all the reports we're seeing, like in practices and things like that. Sean does seem to be the guy that gets more reps with the starters than Reeves does. But it was just interesting to me that he didn't get the start. And when he was coming in, I mean, he was playing center for, I think, maybe the majority of his minutes. He subbed Ryan Young, I think it was the first media timeout. He came in for Ryan Young. And, I mean, they had him going up against Christian Reeves, which I think might be a reason Reeves had a good a day as he did. Now, he was giving Ryan Young some problems too, for sure. But when you're 7'1" and that weight, Sean Stewart, a young freshman who I think has a good potential to be a good defensive small ball five for us this year. But this early into his college career, trying to handle, I don't even know how much Reeves, what was it, 265 or something, 7'1", 265. I don't know his weight exactly, but trying to handle that is just going to be tough sledding for you if you're Sean Stewart. So I want to cut him some slack. He had a couple really nice looking plays that he didn't finish. There's the one play where he grabbed a rebound from Christian Reeves, dribbled it all the way down the court, coast to coast, and just missed the layup at the end. Those are the kind of plays that you want to see from him. He is just a freak athlete, and he's going to make athletic plays. It's just a matter of finishing them, and those will drop. He was getting frustrated with himself out there. He shouldn't be. I know he wanted to show off and get a good showing in front of the Crazy for the first time, but I think he's maybe a guy that offensively we're not going to see a lot from earlier in the year. But as the year goes on, I'm looking for big things from Sean Stewart. I do think he'll be a part of the rotation this year, and I think that I'll go ahead and predict he's going to come back next year. I've already said that in a couple earlier podcasts, but could definitely be a critical part of next year's team. And maybe he could be playing alongside his old teammate Cooper Flagg. That would always be nice. Jeremy Roach was I thought was the best player on the floor, probably for Countdown, or at least the best scorer on the floor. He made a lot of shots, and I'm going to throw this out as a prediction here when it comes to Jeremy Roach. I don't know. I think I've talked about it in an earlier episode. I might have talked about it in the first episode, but I'll go ahead and predict. I think Jeremy Roach is going to have his best shooting year ever at Duke. I think he will beat all of his shooting percentages. I think he'll beat, and the one I'm really looking at is his 3-point percentage. I think that will be as highest as it ever has been for Roach, and that prediction has looked good for Countdown at least. He just got a lot of opportunities, a lot of wide open offensive rebound kickouts or a lot of broken play, open threes. And that's where Jeremy thrives on the 3-point shooting role. It's never really been his just like ISO step back 3-point shot has been lights out. It's more, play breaks down, Jeremy's open in the corner. It feels like he's just automatic. And I think this year it's going to just shape up for him. He might get the most of those ever just because of the other shooting that's going to be around him. We're going to be able to put 5 guys on the court sometimes that are able to shoot the 3. And when you have that, Jeremy's just going to have a lot more open opportunities. And I think he's proved he can drill those. So that's maybe the thing I'm looking for the most out of Roach this year is that 3-point percentage to really skyrocket and just be the best it ever has. That's kind of all the players I want to talk about, really. I mean, for the people I missed, like Jaden Shute had a couple good moments in there. His shot looks really good. I'm still really torn on what his role in the rotation is going to be. Same kind of deal with TJ Power. I thought, Shute and Power actually made 3s back-to-back. I think those guys could actually be fighting a little for not a roster spot, but for a spot in the rotation. Power definitely gives you more size and everything, but if Shute is more ready to go offensively, more ready to catch and shoot, it's going to be hard to keep him off the floor. If he starts the year hot, maybe shooting 40% from 3, I think he'll earn a spot in the rotation, and Power might be a guy that goes down a little bit, or Sean Stewart, depending on how he can start the year. But he had some good moments in there. Mark Mitchell got what you expected kind of from him. I could have seen him with the ball a little bit more. The times he had the ball, he is just a fascinating, fun player to watch. He is so long for how fast he is. And agile through the air, too. I'm really excited to maybe get to see him with the ball more this year, or the focal point of some of the offense. I think him driving to the lane, I feel just really good about with his arm's length. I mean, he went up against TJ Power, who's a pretty big body, a couple times, and just did it with ease down in the paint. And I think, on a good day, he can back down some college centers. He is just a matchup problem no matter where you have him. If you have him at the 4, he's too fast and too agile and can shoot too well to be guarded by opposing power forwards. And if you have him at the 3, he's far too big to be guarded by anyone at the 3 really in college basketball. So I'd like to see him with the ball more, but I thought he being on the blue team was probably a little indicative of that. These are guys that haven't played with him a lot, whereas kind of all the other vets, other than Ryan Young, were on the white team. But the guys who were distributing the ball for his team, McCain and Foster, don't have the experience of playing with him like the guys on the white team would. So that's kind of indicative of that, but I'm not worried about Mark in the slightest. Like I said, I talked about Flip already. I think that's about it. Ryan Young had its moments there. I'm not too worried about Ryan Young's scrimmage performance. We kind of know what he's going to offer us, except if he's added a 3-point shot to his bag, which will yet to be seen how that's going to work. But maybe my biggest takeaway from Countdown, and the thing I find most interesting, is kind of the lineup split. So, the big talk of this offseason is, how are we going to get all these guys on the court at the same time? We feel like guard is maybe our most talent-deep position. How do we get these guards on the floor at the same time? Do we go 3 guards? And the big question with that is Flip going to play the 5? Now, he did play the 5 in this scrimmage, but, starting out, and for a lot of this game, he was playing the 4 to Christian Reeves' 5. Starting, Christian Reeves was on the white team. He was taking the tip. I really would have liked to have seen Flip on Reeves, like on opposing teams. Unfortunately, we didn't get that, but I would have enjoyed to see how kind of Flip handles Reeves, who is like the size of a traditional big, really bigger than a lot of college bigs. But no, so I don't know if that's just something to raise an eyebrow and keep an eye on. Does Shire really feel good about playing Flip at that 5 position? That might be the biggest question of this offseason, because it affects so many other decisions. Because if you don't play Flip at the 5, you're playing Ryan Young a ton of minutes, and you're potentially playing Christian Reeves more minutes. I think if you don't feel good about Flip at the 5, let's say you only want him to play at the 5 for 10, 15 minutes a game, there's a big argument to be made here that Christian Reeves is going to have a bigger role on this year's team than everybody thinks, because Ryan Young's not going to make up all of those minutes and play the rest of them at the 5. And that affects the guards, obviously, because if you play Flip at the 4 and you really don't want to play him at the 5, that just moves Mark Mitchell to the 3, and then you can't do 3 guards unless you want to sit down Mark Mitchell, which I don't think anybody is in favor of. But if you do play Flip at the 5, Christian Reeves' potential for minutes this year, I think drastically go down, because if you're playing Flip at the 5 for 25 minutes a game, and you're kind of just some moments you're putting him at the 4 and you put Ryan Young out there, I think Ryan Young is going to get minutes just like he did last year, as much as Duke fans might seem to complain about him, even though I think he does a lot of great things for the team, does a lot of the dirty work that nobody seems to recognize. But Ryan Young is going to get his minutes, and that doesn't leave a lot of minutes for Reeves, especially when you consider that means Mark is playing a lot of the 4, which I'm super excited about. I actually think offensively Mark is far more suited to the 4. I think look no further than the Syracuse game last year, where we put Mark as kind of the focal point of our offense facing a zone defense. If you go back and watch that game, I think there were times the offense might have stalled a little, but when we started putting Mark at the kind of at the free throw line, which is where you want to attack the zone, because you can either stand there and kind of drive and make a turnaround shot, or you can pass from the free throw line when you're going up against the zone defense. Mark just thrived in that role, so I want to see him play the 4 a lot more this year for his offense sake. Defense, he's going to be good wherever we put him, but offensively, I think his best game is at the 4. But once again, the big question there is, how good do you feel with Flip at the 5? I know Flip has the size to play the 5. I think he has the athleticism now with the hip surgery. That's, I think, is going to be Duke's best lineup. I think if I'm analyzing this team from afar, I feel like the way we get the best amount of players on the floor is with Flip at the 5 and Mark at the 4 and 3 guards, or however you want to make it. Maybe TJ Power comes along and shoots 40% from 3 and has the size and defense, and you put him at that small forward spot. But however you want to shake it, I just think, we talk about death lineups, about, it's a minute to go in a Carolina game and you need a bucket and a stop. What lineup do you put? I'm leaning towards Flip being at that 5 spot, Mark at the 4, and then 3 guards. But we're going to see. That's something I'll really look for in the exhibition coming up. We have an exhibition, I think it's against UNC Pembroke, November 1st, coming up very, very shortly. And that game is going to be more of an indication than Countdown will to how we're going to play, because we're actually going to be playing competition that's not other guys on the team. We'll really get to see kind of what our freshmen have there, way more than we did at Countdown. So just be wary of that. Be watching that for sure. That's going to tell us a lot. I will be very invested to see how many minutes Flip plays at the 5 in that game. And even just the starting lineup. I've already predicted my starting lineup to start the year. Now, I don't think this will be the starting lineup to end, but I do think the starters to begin the year will be Roach, Proctor, Mitchell, Flip, and Ryan Young. I think Shire will reward experience and go with all the returners to start next year. Pretty much, I think that's the identical starting lineup to last year. I think we'll probably have that again, at least to start the year. But I will be looking forward to, when Ryan goes out, is it we're bringing in Reeves, or is it Flip sliding to the 5? That's something I'll certainly be looking out for. And on the other side, on the other end of the court, the blue team, similar stuff was going on. We played a ton of 3-guard lineups on the blue side. I think Jaden Shute might have played the whole game, but it was pretty much... now, I know he's kind of a forward, but it really plays like a guard. So it was McCain, Foster, Shute pretty much the whole time on the other side there. And then it was Mitchell, Ryan Young. But then when Ryan Young got pulled, Sean Stewart was playing that 5. So I definitely think they are grooming Sean Stewart to be a small ball 5 and are throwing him out there as a center defensively to see how he plays. So that's something that, if you're rooting for Sean Stewart to play a lot of minutes at the 5, I thought that was an encouraging sign at Countdown. They were subbing him out for Ryan Young, and then they threw TJ Power out there too a few times at the 4 and Sean Stewart at the 5. So, that could be, if they were doing that on the other side with Flip, I think we're having a different conversation today that, Flip is definitely going to play more minutes at the 5, but And I know it's just countdown, and as I said to myself, take it with a grain of salt, but that's just, when I see Flip play as many minutes as he did from the 4, it just makes me wonder how much they're right off the bat they're going to play him at the 5, especially when on the other end, Sean Stewart's already getting groomed to be a small ball 5. But we'll see. We'll see about that. That's all I got to say on the side of the scrimmage. Great scrimmage, obviously. Don't read too much into it. Duke has a secret scrimmage with Villanova coming up, a secret, not-so-secret scrimmage. So I'm sure we'll be breaking down the box scores for that. I wonder what we'll get. Last year we did get a box score, but we'll see. We'll see what the result of that scrimmage is. That's a scrimmage that, if Duke actually plays a majority of their good players, you would expect to win that thing. Number 2 rated school in the country going up against Villanova. Not sure where they're projected to finish. I don't even know if they're projected top 5 Big East finishers this year. So it's one you expect to win if you're Duke, but don't hit the panic button for a secret scrimmage. We don't know what's going on. A lot of it is situational work, that they're not just playing a full-out game necessarily. So don't freak out about the scrimmage if we found out Duke lost or it was really close. Again, this team, I know we talk about its experience, but a lot of the stuff off the bench is young. We don't know how those guys are going to be played in the scrimmage. We can't actually watch it for the most part, except for some highlights maybe that they put out. So, but anyway, regardless, be looking at the results from that. And next, I kind of want to move on to some of the recruiting highlights at Countdown and since Countdown. So the big recruits that were there, in my mind, were the big 3 of Cooper Flagg, VJ Edgecombe, and Patrick Ngangba. I think it's Ngangba. I don't quite know how to say it, but that's going to be what we go with here. But man, they looked like they had a great time at Countdown. And some of the recruiting pictures are kind of just coming out as I'm releasing this. But boy, the Duke social media team keeps pulling out all the stops for these guys. They pulled out the Brotherhood unis, and when you see the Brotherhood uniforms, something serious is going on. They really want these guys, and man, looked like they had a great time. The Crazies, of course, chanted with them to sit with them, and they all obliged. Also, Darren Harris and Isaiah Evans were there, 2 verbal Duke commits coming in for next year. So I'm sure they were recruiting guys pretty hard too. We've had some hints dropped from them, too, as well, that some of the guys didn't need a lot of recruiting. Darren Harris said that on another podcast, the 5 Point Play podcast. Make sure you check those guys out, by the way. But that was a fun interview, watching him with them. Maybe dropping some hints there. I don't know. I don't want to get the guy in too much trouble, but if I had to predict, I think he's talking about Cooper Flagg. As kind of, we've heard no news as of yet, but Cooper Flagg recruiting news probably couldn't be going any better if you're a Duke fan right now. We just got another crystal ball prediction for him on 24/7 Sports from I think it was Travis Branham, I think that's his last name, but a guy that's notorious for being really accurate when it comes to recruiting. Also read earlier today, he typically predicts really late in the recruiting cycle when a guy is ready to commit. So, no news as of right now. Let's see, I'm recording this at about 7:30 on October 24th, Tuesday, October 24th. Cooper Flagg has not committed anywhere yet. But as the days grow, I do feel more confident that he's going to be a Duke guy. He's always been seen as kind of a Duke lock, but in recent weeks, UConn has stirred up a lot of dust, stirred up a lot of drama, a lot of beef on Twitter with a lot of the other Duke accounts. If you're looking on there, that they felt really confident Flagg was going to be a Husky, but the more and more time goes by right now, the more it really seems like he's a Duke lock, and he was always a Duke lock. But we'll see. Anything could happen. Last thing I want to do is jinx this, but that'll be a podcast episode by itself when Cooper Flagg commits. He is one of the premier high school basketball recruits in the last several years. I think about guys like RJ Barrett or Marvin Bagley, those types of recruits where, they're a perfect 1,000 on 24/7, 5 stars, 1,000 score. These guys do not come around so often. He has been one of the most desired recruits for several years now. I think NBA executives were saying if there was a draft last year for the NBA, he might have been the first NBA draft pick last year as a sophomore in high school going into his junior year. That's how good this kid is. I mean, for Duke to be able to get him with the recruiting class we already have next year, we already have Darren Harris and Isaiah Evans, two just snipers, by the way, on the outside, which I think that's a strategic move by Shire to surround Flagg with as many three-point shooters as possible. But already have those two guys. You know, I'll throw out my prediction on this too. I feel like every freshman this year is going to come back. I think if one doesn't come back, I actually think it's more likely to be Caleb Foster than anybody. I think most people are expecting Jared McCain to be our best freshman this year. I just think Foster has more of an NBA potential right away than McCain does because of his size and his potential defense. I think, if we look at the end of the year and Caleb Foster has shot like 38, 39% from three, has been a good defender and been a good distributor for us. Maybe one of our other guards goes down with an injury, hope not, but he gets a lot more playing time. I just think there is more of a possibility that Foster goes pro after this year than McCain does. But I think they're all coming back. I think Power and Stewart, are definitely coming back. I don't see them going to the NBA next year at all. I think McCain and Foster are interesting, but McCain has already expressed interest in being a multi-year player at Duke. Plus, because of his size, I think he would just have to shoot the lights out to be considered to be a lottery pick for next year, which I think is what everybody's aiming for when you come to Duke. So I think he's coming back. And again, I think Foster would just have to do some really special things to kind of be where he wants to be in next year's draft. But all that to say, you think about a potential another year of 4 freshmen coming back. Then you think about the recruits we have next year and adding to it one of the best recruits in recent memory. Man, do we talk about a scary team for next year? I mean, we could have Jared McCain and Caleb Foster kind of being our two-headed dragon at guards. By the way, I just love how those guys are going to play together. I think they fit each other's game perfectly. I think Foster is kind of the brawny, get it to the rim type guard, floater, mid-range pull-up playmaker, and then Jared is just like also a passer, playmaker, just shoot the lights out from three, though. I'm pumped to see how they play together, especially, if they're both coming back next year, man. And then, you surround them with some other shooters. You get some of the other recruits. Darren Harris and Isaiah Evans already coming. Then you get Flagg in there. And when you can really play Flagg at power forward or center, if you get Patrick Gangba, you throw him in at center, man, what a scary team that would be. And that leads me to the other recruits. Just from watching the footage, it just looked like VJ Edgecombe had a great time. all the footage of him, he's just smiling and laughing and just looking like the happiest guy in the world. Has posted a ton of stuff on Instagram about his Duke pictures. So is Cooper Flagg, by the way. There have been a lot of. In fact, VJ Edgecombe commented maybe like kind of like a teammate ? On Cooper Flagg's post with all the Duke stuff on. So those guys might have a good relationship already. And VJ Edgecombe looked like he had a great time. I'm hearing his Duke visit from the insiders. I'm not an insider myself, but I try to keep up with Duke Twitter a lot, which has a lot of claimed insiders, so maybe they know something. But I'm hearing that VJ Duke is on the up and up for him. On 3 does give us the best chance of landing him right now. I think second place is like Alabama, but there are like 4 schools with like a 20% chance to land him, and Duke just has like a 25% chance. So we'll see how that goes, but I also don't know how soon he's going to commit. I've heard he might be a commitment that might last a bit longer. And as far as Ngangba goes, he's maybe the one of the 3 I feel the least confident about. I feel confident we're going to get Cooper Flagg. Edgecombe looks like more of a Duke player after this weekend than maybe I thought. I didn't feel great about him before. I feel a lot better about him now. Like if I had to bet, I do think he commits to Duke. Just as of right now, no super good backup for that, but just what people are saying, it feels like he has more of a potential to commit to Duke. And Ngangba, I just don't know. I know he's got a lot of people vying for him, but we'll kind of see with him as the rest of the tea leaves unfold. And I think a lot of it could be what kind of dominoes happen when Flagg commits to Duke, if he does. Who knows? Anything can happen. But if he commits to Duke, what's that going to mean for those other 2 guys? If they have a great relationship with Cooper, who knows? He could get them both here. And then we're talking about another insanely deep Duke team for next year. I forgot about Con Knipple, too. I mean, just that. I mean, I'm forgetting about these 4- and 5-star recruits because we have so many. It's just it's crazy how Shire keeps getting these guys to commit, even though they know they're going to have to compete for minutes. We're getting these guards and small forwards and stuff, wing players, to commit for next year's team when we already are going to have 4 players return that are going to play those positions. So it's just great to see the culture Shire's building of guys coming back and recruiting guys that want to compete for their roles. And Jared McCain and Caleb Foster are great examples of that. Guys that knew they were going to come in and probably sit on the bench and have to fight for a first spot in the rotation, but they did it anyway because they knew it was going to make them better. And I promise you, that does not go unnoticed. And I think their careers are going to be for the better for it. And I think that the culture that Shire's building kind of come to where you're going to be pushed the most. It's not all about, as a freshman, where are you going to go to get the most minutes. It's about go to the place that is going to make you a better basketball player. It's like a lot of these high school guys are just concerned, I want to get 35 minutes a game, but they're not concerned about who they're going to play against in practice, who they're going to be coached by, and how they're going to sharpen their skills in the college game before going off to the pros. And I think sometimes it's underrated going to a spot where you're sitting under a player that's better than you. I think a lot of guys are just too arrogant and cocky to sit under a guy that is better than them and to learn from them. And I think that's why I'm just so pumped about Foster and McCain this year, because those guys staying committed to Duke when they knew 2 starting guards were coming back, shows me that they're not running from any sort of grind or running from any sort of competition. They're there to compete and get better and just become better players. They're not concerned with their minutes, just about winning. And that's, I think, the culture Shire's building, and I couldn't be more excited for it. But yeah, so that's kind of all I got for you today. It's been kind of a longer episode. Hope you stuck with me throughout it. We'll be back again soon. Here coming up soon, we're going to do our total season prediction episode where we might predict some stats and Duke's overall record, go through the schedule, see which games I like Duke in, what games I don't like Duke in, see what players I think are going to have a hot streak, what players I might think fade away, and of course, any big recruiting news drops soon. We'll be back for that. I have a feeling we're going to have one coming up here pretty soon in the next week or so, but we'll see. So again, thanks for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at Duke Blue Central. If you want to help out the show, you can rate it 5 stars, share it with your other Duke fans. Again, thank you to everybody who's tuned along with us for the ride so far. I'm super pumped about continuing this thing throughout the regular season. I'm hoping that after every season game, I'll be able to record a pod right after, kind of get my reactions on it. That's what I'm maybe most looking forward to in starting this thing. So be looking for those. Can't wait for the season to start. Go Blue Devils.